That's the beautiful thing about playing music, is that like the people are incredible. Musicians like overwhelmingly are really good people. And you have these friendships with these super intelligent but very empathic, and to make a creative endeavor work, you need that, I think.
Welcome. This is the Greenleaf Music Podcast, A Noise from the Deep, and I'm Dave Douglas. And that's the music of trumpeter and composer Jaimie Branch from her album on the international anthem label, Fly or Die. Jaimie's been really active around New York and Chicago for a good number of years, and she's taking her music in some new and surprising places. She also plays with William Parker, Tomika Reed, Chad Taylor, among many others, including James Brandon Lewis, friend of the pod. Jaimie will also be playing a few concerts in the Festival of New Trumpet Music in New York from September 5th to the 12th, 2018. More information at fontmusic.org. So I wanted to find out more about how Jaimie makes her music and how it developed. I went to her neighborhood in Red Hook, Brooklyn to find out. I hadn't heard one of these trucks in a while. We also got to talking about Booker Little, and that was pretty cool. If you enjoy this show, please consider subscribing to Greenleaf Music via our Bandcamp subscription model. When you subscribe, you'll get access to our entire catalog of music, about 60 albums, and lots of additional material. We're recording great artists like Joe Lovano, Rudy Royston, Greg Ward, Linda Mahon O, and Donnie McCaslin have records on Greenleaf, Ryan Keberly, lots more to come. You also get access to the exclusive subscriber-only recordings, most recently a piece called Uplift that I created for Bill Laswell, Julian Lage, Mary Halverson, Ian Chang, Joe Lovano, and myself. We release a track every month, and each month features a new piece of composition that goes to the subscribers. So here's the interview with Jaimie Branch. Thanks for listening. Hey, Jaimie, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Dave. Nice
Great
to be
hear the music.
Yeah, it's cool you're checking it out in the traffic.
I was checking it out in the traffic and also in other environments.
Oh, cool.
Just so you know.
Yeah, so
but we just listened to open the show, Jump Off, and a little bit of Theme 1.
Oh, cool.
Great trumpeting as always, and
Thank you.
composing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, I read on some online source that you were actually originally from Red Hook, and we're meeting in Red Hook. Thank you, Pioneer Works.
Yeah, Pioneer
But it turns out that's not true.
No, that's not true.
So someone spread a rumor.
Spotify
fake
lies.
news.
Yeah, it's fake news. Don't trust Spotify, folks. No, I'm from Long Island. I'm from Huntington, Long Island, 11743.
Well, that's the zip code.
Yeah, they had these shirts when I was a little kid that was like Beverly Hills 90210, but it was Huntington, New York 11743.
Wow. But you left there when you were pretty young, right?
When I was 9, yeah.
And were you already playing trumpet then? Or?
No, I moved between 3rd and 4th grade, and we started band in 4th grade in both places. So
you got to pick an instrument. It was
Got
so
to pick an
funny.
instrument.
It's like exactly my history.
Really?
Yeah, 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Decide what you want. I had piano lessons earlier, but that was when they gave me a trombone initially.
Oh,
actually,
no.
and it took me 2 years to wise up and switch.
2 years on trombone, that's humbling. When you start on trumpet, you're cool. No, I'm just kidding. My sister played this alto saxophone for 2 weeks before she decided it was too heavy and that she would play the trumpet. So, yeah, yay, feminism.
But you said they wanted you to play oboe. Now, is this more
That's
fake
true.
news?
That is true. My mother really wanted me to play oboe, and the band director wanted me to play French horn because they didn't have anybody to do that.
And then there was an incident involving a dinner and a glass of red wine.
Yeah, man, you did your research.
Well, I wasn't even sure whether to believe it.
That's the way I remember it. That I was deciding between the trumpet and the saxophone, and I spilled red wine all over the saxophone sheet and also all over my father. And I was we were out to dinner. And then, it was supposed to be nice.
But also it's an interesting story because it's for me to figure out how does that logically lead to you being a trumpet player. Yeah, all of the mess. It's okay, that settles it.
Yeah, definitely.
But you were in Chicago, and that's where you started listening to music and discovering
I was listening
the
to
music
path. Pretty young. I was composing kind of young. I did those NISMA things, New York State Solo Music Association. They had so I did that stuff. My brother is a musician, and he's 10 years older than me.
Oh.
And he's my half brother, so we didn't see each other that often, so we didn't fight or anything. So I wanted to do everything he wanted to do. He did. So started playing music pretty young.
What does he play?
He was a trumpet player, and he switched to euphonium when he wised up.
But he turned you on to music when you were little.
Yeah, in a pretty major way. My family is pretty musical, not professional musicians by any stretch, but pretty musical.
Everybody's listening to stuff, so you had a lot of different sources of things.
It's interesting, actually. Their listening was kind of straight, pretty narrow, but they liked to play. My dad played guitar, and my mom played piano.
Oh.
And my mom had more varied listening. She's Colombian, but my dad was Elvis mostly, and the Beatles, other, Nat King Cole he told me he liked, but he never opened that box that I got him, so. I don't hold a grudge, though.
Huh. On some level, we're setting the record straight about your childhood stories, but we should move past that quickly because you're doing so much great music. And the thing that, one question I wanted to ask was that so much of what you've done has been associated with Chicago, with, maybe not that early time, but when you got out of music school and went back to the Chicago area, you developed all of these really important connections that even now you're living in Brooklyn, that seems to still be a really important part of your music, the connection to Chicago and the sound and the spirit and the people. Would you say that's true even here?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was really lucky in that I came up musically there. So I have a lot of these mentors / peers and making that shift from someone like Chad Taylor who's in the band, certainly someone like Hamid Drake, who I recently started playing with, is that's a hero. So those Chicago connections. The band is also a lot of is entirely now Lester's in the band, but the band was made up of Chicago people as well.
Yeah, on the record it's Tamika.
It's Tamika. Yep.
Tamika Reed on cello. And it's Jason
Jaimie on bass.
Every time I see that word, I'm like, damn, I'm going to learn how to say that.
Yeah.
Now I know.
He's an Armenian,
And Chad Taylor on drums.
And Chad Taylor.
And then you have some guests, too, but everybody is pretty Chicago.
Everybody's Chicago on that record, actually, except for, me, basically. No, I guess me and Chad and Jason and Tamika had all been away from Chicago. Tamika was still there. She maybe still is there. But everybody else had moved away, at that point, years before. But
is that why you moved to New York, ultimately? Or do you just feel like there's just more stuff happening here?
I was in Baltimore between.
Right.
And I think there's more stuff happening here, definitely, than there.
Than Baltimore.
It's just a bigger city. It's just, metrics. But there's some great players in Baltimore.
It's a great scene.
Yeah. Red Room, and High Zero has had me a couple times. And they're really interesting in Baltimore. They're like, different type of compositions. The New York jazz composition is like, exactly, you know what that is. You like made it, kind of.
Oh.
That Tiny Bell Trio, that was very formative for me, I would say.
Thank you.
That Winter and Winter Pink Disc,
Songs for Wandering Souls is the name of that one.
That's a good record.
Well, thanks. I mean, Dave Ballou, who I've known and made music with for many, many years, was the head of Towson at the time that you were there, right?
Yeah, that's how I got in. That's how
is that
I
right?
Got funneled
great.
to Towson. I was like, I want to study with Dave Ballou,
Great.
Incredible technician.
And you had studied with John McNeil,
thinker.
too, at New England Conservatory.
Yes, McNeil. And he got me into NEC also.
My peeps. Yeah, he did.
He did. I had I met him at band camp the summer before. And
you mean the application band camp? The record, the music selling? No, I'm just making a joke.
Right. No, actual band camp.
So he heard you and he went to bat for you up at NEC and got you in.
Yeah,
That's
more than
great.
that, he heard me. We talked, and we were both total weirdos. And he was like, "Okay, cool." More so, I couldn't play at all actually. So I'm,
Wow.
lucky in that way.
Well, my first lesson with him, I don't know if I could play or not, but he was pretty taken aback when he heard what I was playing.
Yeah.
Like he asked me if I knew where to get medication after I was through playing my solo. And but I learned a lot from him,
Yeah.
But to go back to the music, I mean, you're writing all this music. You've clearly had ideas and creativity and different unusual ways, let's say, of thinking about composing and notating your work and working with other musicians and improvising and bringing all of that stuff together. And I'm sure that when you were doing that children's composition workshop, that's not really what it was about. That must have, on some level, you must have fought to make your own space to do that. You said, what was it? NISC, right? What was it?
NISMA.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that program. Maybe that was where they told you to make graphic scores.
No, they just, at that point, that
and-
was 6 and 7 years old. So they were like, anything you do, you'll probably get a ribbon. And I was like, you can get a ribbon? I'm in. That was this vibe. I wrote The Sky Ends in My Dreams, though, and that's a little deep.
Wow.
Yeah.
You still have the piece?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So, but this kind of composing that you're doing for this record, for example, and we'll get to Anteloper later, which is a whole other way of thinking about it, I think.
Mostly improvised Anteloper.
So, but this Fly or Die music, I've looked at the scores, and if it's with your permission, maybe we'll put a score up on the website so people can look at it if they're interested.
Yeah, that's cool.
That must be, that's not the kind of composing they teach you even at the conservatory.
There is a fair amount of traditional notation in the score. I actually picked up, so I've been writing this way basically since I graduated.
Yeah.
I wrote my senior recital like this, and that was the first time I wrote it, anything like this. But I took it really from a Joe Morris thing.
Oh, okay.
I did a large improvisation at Issue Project Room in 2004. A lot of NEC students with Joe and Michael Evans on drums, and other folks that I would know now, but didn't then. And he wrote this large form improvisation all as a flow chart. And that idea really stuck with me because the way it was a way to very quickly inform a type of sound or place you want to get to without too much instruction on how to get there, without it being so literal, And so that idea is something that I've definitely brought to this piece.
In a way, I hear that in a lot of the pieces that you're making, and I guess the thing for me is maybe it's that situation that gave you permission to work that way, right?
Right.
I think I'm just asking this because for me, I feel like a lot of the things that I do and have done, I feel like I've had to fight to create the space, and I'm curious whether that was ever something that was in your path.
So when you're writing, you've had to fight to create space for the improvisation within the composition?
Or to fight to stand up for a different way of thinking about organizing the music that was not acceptable to my teachers or the people I was working with, and to say, no, I really hear this way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. When I hear you play, when I see you play, now listening closer and looking at the scores, I feel like you really... There's rebellion in there. There's the punk rock aesthetic.
Right. Sure.
But you're forging your own path.
Yeah,
There's
think
now a new way to be.
I was lucky in that I wound up at NEC at the right time.
Uh-huh.
Like I studied with McNeil, but then I studied with, I got to study with Steve Lacy, and that was extreme. That changed everything for me. Talk about someone that throws out the rule book. Like you'd walk in and the room would be hotboxed, and he had to smoke. He had cancer really bad, and he had to microwave it before he smoked anyway. But I mean, like, and then he would play with him, and you would play a 12-bar blues, and his time was so behind the beat that you would get lost, but it would be like right there every single time. It would be like, so he was creating a really physical space, and like, so I learned from him, and then I studied with Joe Morris afterwards, who was like my, advisor during the senior time. And he just played a lot of records for me, and we played a lot of duo. I got lucky.
That's the kind of permission I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
And I guess it's also permission that comes with a challenge, like what you're talking about playing with Steve Lacy, and you're getting lost.
Yeah. I guess
That's something that you grow from that.
Yeah,
right?
I'm still trying to work on that. Like, time, that's like the thing I'm really trying to get. Like technique-wise, or just trumpet-wise, or life-wise. It's just like, articulating in a really personal way is that's like the thing, I think. The sound and the articulation is like the, So why Booker Little's so great. He's playing bebop lines, but he's this sound, his own, And Lee Morgan has it too. Especially the articulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned Don Cherry and Miles and...
Of course, yeah.
Miles Davis and...
Yeah. I love Miles right now because he has so much stuff that's just like coming, out of the woodwork. And I'm like, there's just so much more of his era than Don Cherry. There's great footage too, but
You're
there's like hardly.
Video.
I'm talking about video. Yeah, there's hardly anything of like Booker Little and those dudes.
Yeah, there's one or two videos of Booker Little. I think there's one video of Clifford Brown.
It's like, yeah, I've seen that video. Yeah.
But it's special. So, talking about Miles, I always feel like so much of what made him so important for so many of us is that it just involved the whole music. It wasn't really about being a trumpet player. It was about the entire spectrum, and something that struck me listening to Fly or Die is the way that you're working with the other instrumentalists. There's really specialized areas where you're not even playing. Yeah. And things are happening. And I was going to play a little bit of this piece, Meanwhile.
Oh, cool.
Which features the guitar.
Yeah.
And maybe talk about that a little bit, Meanwhile.
Sure.
So that's Meanwhile from the record Fly or Die. It's on the label International Anthem. It struck me as really unique, maybe unusual. Okay, so you've got like a working quartet that's trumpet, cello, bass, and drums.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a kinship for that. I used to have that quintet, and the only different instrument was a violin.
Right.
And it's a sound that I just love, and it resonates for me. And then on the record, you add these other instruments. So, like bringing in guitar, that is such a great change in the flow of the record, but it's also allows you to write a different way.
I didn't write that. That was improvised by Matt Schneider.
Completely improvised.
Yeah, completely improvised. So, you know, Meanwhile was the transitional point, and you know, the score or whatever for looking at it.
Yeah. And even when you brought in the other instruments, that was
what became duo cello and bass is what Meanwhile is. You know.
Great.
So it was just an improvisation, and that went to a drum solo, and it was cool. But like bringing Matt in just like, you know, amped it a little bit.
Sure.
And it set up, because the record has a little bit of post-production. It kind of like introduced another instrument in a way where it's not like he's sneaking in, he's part of the band. It's like now he's in, you know. And he does in a way sneak in, actually. If you're listening to where he comes in, he really gets in there with the cello. And that's like as much direction as I really gave Matt. I was like, I gave him some beer too, you know, that helped. Some pops. But Matt Schneider is like a genius, and he just like, he was in there, he does this like, you know, beautiful open picking thing, and he also has this Derek Bailey world, right? So that was the other direction I gave him. I was like, yeah, go from that thing to your Derek Bailey world.
So all these instructions, it's like you said before, not giving too much direction.
Too much, right? Because he knows how to do it. Like that's the thing. Like melodies are really like breaths.
But you did shape it.
Yeah.
So you could say...
I shaped it, but it was improvisation that was organic already. Like it already existed.
I see. Yes.
And then, like that didn't get chopped or anything. And then Chad coming in, I told Matt to improvise with Chad. So that was like this weird idea of a duo, but separated by time and space, you know. Probably not a weird idea. Probably lots of people do that. But new for me.
Well, it has a great effect here.
And then, Chad gets into the second theme.
You write for strings really effectively, too. And if I'm understanding your scores, which I don't presume to know enough, but a lot of that is graphic as well. The way that you're writing. I mean, clearly there's traditional notation for what it's worth, but there's also parts of the scores that are more or less drawings and shapes and instructions for what they should do. And I feel like it comes across really effectively on a piece like The Storm, for example. Let me just play a little bit of that.
Sure.
So that's The Storm. You want to describe anything about that? As we were listening to it, you said, so literal.
Yeah, so literal. Because the score for it is literally like these nosedives with an arrow that like points down a slope, and it says Tamika nosedives, and then a Jimmy and nosedives, and then Chad floor tom swells, and like really loud floor tom swells. It's like that's the thunder. Okay, everybody gets it. It's not like there's no hidden messages. And then we go to outer space, so I thought the best way to do that would be to draw, outer space. And that, for me, is like a mic with a harmon mute, multiphonics, and huge reverb.
And you have the electronics on stage with you, or
No, I
wherever it is.
usually, yeah.
You add it after.
I asked, it's usually board reverb, just whatever they got. The nicer the board, the better the reverb. I've done it without also,
Yeah.
It can work without, but that the reverb, when you drench it, adds so much space, So that's what I was getting at there.
Right. So it leads me to this question that, I've heard you in a lot of contexts where, this brings together your production skills and your interest in making music in the studio and using electronics, but also a blend of instruments that's different and unusual. And I wonder if you feel like you're playing differently the trumpet too because of that. Like this is a very different context than a lot of the contexts that I hear you playing in.
Yeah, it's definitely more edited, and not even like edited post-production, just edited in my mind in the length. I wanted it to be a short record.
Yeah.
Specifically. I wanted it to sound good on vinyl, A, which goes back to the engineering stuff, and then B, I just don't think the attention span is there for an 80-minute record right now, It's
But a lot of this was recorded live at Le Poisson Rouge, right?
That's correct. So half of the record, basically, half of the record from The Storm on is recorded live at LPR.
Oh.
With a little bit of editing because that concert was much longer. It was like a 60-minute concert.
Right.
So I stitched Waltzer together, editing out some improvisation, and then after that, Flyer Die, I believe, is next. And that's a trumpet solo.
Yeah.
And the last piece was done in the studio.
Oh,
in my sister's
interesting.
apartment.
Wow, that's great.
In Red Hook.
Would you say the electronics have always been an equal passion of yours to the trumpet and the composing?
Electronics, I wouldn't say equal passion.
I guess when I say electronics, I mean production and,
Oh.
being a producer and bringing in post-production elements.
This is the first time that I really delved into that technique in the studio for my own personal work. The other records that I had attempted to make before were more documents, like this is a document of a concert, or even this is a document of what this band is right now.
Yeah.
Not a ton of, and it was really important to me that the improvisation be pure and untouched, Like I thought that was very important, and I still do, but it's sharp. But what I'm trying to say is sharpened up, I think, over time. The first band I had that recorded something like this was called Musket. We did it at Albini's studio in Chicago, which is like, Steve Albini's known for that.
Yeah.
Dry, everything is what it is,
Like you said, a document.
I was super into that aesthetic,
Yeah.
So this is kind of new for me, but at the same time, I've been playing synthesizers for a long time now.
Huh.
Probably since 2002, so that's 16 years now.
Do you play some of the synthesizers on the Anteloper record?
Yeah. We pretty much equally share the electronics duty. So I have a Juno 106, like a Roland 61 key. Sorry, I keep hitting the mic. Juno 106, Roland 61 key, and a JU 06.
Oh, nice.
Do you know, it's like those little, Roland's making these little modules, and they're putting them out cheap, like $250. And they're direct copies of the Juno 106. They stopped, but they're doing short runs. So I got mine so I could tour with Anteloper because it's
Wow.
not feasible to fly with the Juno 106. you know?
Right. Right. And a lot of places probably can't get you one.
Right. So I couldn't
So you
rely
have a
on
little
that. So I
rig
have a
that you
little
can
rig.
use.
Yeah, I have a little touring rig.
Wow.
And but I use it when I'm here. I use both of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And then I have a Line 6 green guide. You know that pedal?
Sure.
And that's just I have a mixer, and the effects out goes to the green guy, and I send everything I put through the mixer through that. I have like a fader for it, so I can open it or close it. But usually it's just wide open.
But you don't use that with Fly or Die. You use that with Antelope.
That's a specific. Yeah, it's Anteloper's rig.
Specific to that project.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And some of the post-production on this record, was it using that same sort of rig? Or was it a different...
On the
kind of-
Anteloper record?
No, I mean on Fly or Die.
The only thing electronic I used on Fly or Die was a Space Echo on that piece, Leaves of Glass.
I was going to play a little bit of that because I want to talk about the two cornet players that you invited.
Oh, sick.
Were they on the live show too?
Ben was. Yeah, Ben. That solo on the Storm. That's not me playing a solo. That's Ben live playing a solo. So I'm playing the trumpet multiphonics, and he plays the solo on top.
Oh.
Yeah, people don't get that out enough. Yeah, that's Ben. I wanted it to kind of be
I'm
like
going to go back and listen again.
Yeah,
to that.
next time if that happens, I'm going to have it be like featuring,
So
Ben
let
Lamar
me
Gay.
just play a little bit of Leaves of Glass.
Sure.
So now I was looking at the title and thinking, is this like Walt Whitman and Stan Kenton?
Ding.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. So that's Leaves of Glass with Ben Lamar Gay and Josh Berman on cornets. Two Chicago musicians, right?
Two Chicago musicians. They did play the live version of this, and that piece was written for them. But actually, on the record, it's me and me and me.
Really?
Yeah, the intonation just the live stuff, the intonation wasn't there, and I had one day. So I just, I layered it. But Josh and Ben are two very close friends.
Well, they're on the record. They're credited as...
Yeah, they're on the record.
Yeah.
For sure. And that was Ben playing the solo in the Storm, and
Right.
Josh and Ben creep up. This melody kind of comes back a few times.
Okay.
And that's them. And also, the piece was written for them, you know. I had a band called Cornet Orbit, because I'm a trumpet and they're cornets.
See,
so
how
it's
did
like-
I never hear of that?
Yeah, well, it played 2 shows, in Chicago. That band's
Sometimes
still a band.
great
though,
bands, yeah.
If anybody wants to book Cornet Orbit,
Cornet Orbit, who's in it?
Josh Berman and Ben Lamar Gay.
Just a trio.
It's a trio, yeah.
There's no other instruments. It's just...
No other instruments, so more of a droney.
And you play trumpet. You don't switch to cornet for that band.
No, never.
What is it? I hate to ask gear questions, but I watched your video clip about the record, and your horn, I couldn't quite tell what it is.
It's a box Strad, but
That's
it's
what I thought, but it's kind of beat up, if I may.
it's got a 72 bell.
Okay.
That's the big difference. I mean,
It's not that beat up.
it's not that beat up, although I do think I got it like undented right after that. You know, Josh Landris knows me because I have to go there a lot.
Yes.
My trumpet has accidents all the time.
I'm
But
sure
it's okay.
it does.
You know, live hard, play hard. Trumpet
It's
takes a
definitely
dive.
true, but I think
It's a pretty
You know,
normal
we-
Strad though.
we-
It's like a
with the-
90s, like a mid 90s. I had an 80 that got stolen.
Oh.
It was the trumpet my father got from my oldest brother, who gave it to my other brother, who gave it to me, who gave it to my sister, and then I took it back.
and then someone stole it.
And then someone stole it, and that was a sad thing. But I like the raw brass, and I've been playing a silver plated horn though for like a decade now. You know,
It doesn't come off on your hands. That's the thing.
The
That's why
silver
I
plating
play
or
a
the
silver
raw?
plated.
no, I never had that. I guess a little bit of that oxidized blue stuff would, but not terribly. You know.
I used to play a raw horn for a while, and
I know.
it would drive me crazy.
Yeah,
Just
really.
like,
What was that? A constel that you had, or
I can't remember even. It's so long ago.
I saw you play with that once, I think.
And I switched to cornet once for about 6 months.
I did too. After
I
that one
tried
got
to
stolen.
make it my thing, and then I gave up after 6 months.
Nah. You know, it's interesting. Rob Mazurek switched to the cornet a long time ago, and now he's on the piccolo trumpet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Shout outs to Rob and the piccolo trumpet.
Yeah. Well, Rob sent his shout outs to you as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I wrote him to get some thoughts.
Yeah, he's definitely a hero / mentor / becoming a peer in a cool way.
Well, you were saying something about Anteloper being like New York underground duo.
Yeah.
So do you feel that kinship for Rob?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And while like we're not directly like, Jason's not playing marimba, like Chad did all that marimba drum stuff. We're not copying them, but that is definitely like the spirit
course.
of that band. I mean, I loved that band. Axis and Alignment and Synesthesia.
Mm-hmm.
Those two records on Thrill Jockey, it's like came out when I was like a 18-year-old or something, so it was like I listened to that stuff a lot.
Let's listen to a little bit of Anteloper since we're talking about it. This, how do you pronounce it? Is it Ohonio Tree Suite?
Ohonio Tree, yeah.
Ohonio Tree Suite. Jason Nazary on drums.
Jason Nasty Nazary on drums, yeah.
And you. And it's a duo.
Me. Yep, duo.
Anteloper.
Duo. Yes.
And this also is really recent. Didn't this come out just like in the spring?
This came out in the spring, yes. As
So
a
you guys are
cassette.
touring and
Yeah, we toured. We did a U.S. tour with the cassette.
Wow.
Yeah.
with the cassette.
Yeah, it was for that release.
How-
Although I will say that the cassettes came halfway through the tour.
But how long is the cassette? How much music? How much time?
It's a longer record. It's maybe like clocks in at 50 minutes or so.
And you feel like the sound on a cassette is saturated in some interesting way?
I International Anthem would have preferred it to come out on vinyl, you know.
Oh.
But there's a timeline with cassettes that is way more feasible, and for us it was like more important to get the music out now rather than next year or whatever the timeline is for vinyl. You know,
Right.
the way it worked is actually like that's a really cool thing about cassettes, and I do like that saturation. I do not like the noise, but I'm getting over it. You know, I have a cassette player now.
A lot of people don't.
A lot of people don't. I know. Before I give people stuff anymore, I ask them if they can play the CD. Like,
Well, right, CDs
You know,
even. People will say, well, I
CDs.
don't have a CD player.
yep,
We just put out a 7-inch 45
sick. That's
RPM, and people are, I don't know if my vinyl player plays at 45, and it probably does.
Yeah, it does.
But it's cool, and it's also like, okay, we released 2 tunes on this thing, and
Yeah.
they sound great.
Right.
And it's just an interesting platform to be able to release the music.
Yeah.
Like when I came into the business, it was the end of vinyl,
Right.
and everything was 40 minutes. And then pretty much my whole career as a band leader has been the CD era. So it was
Right.
like 60 to 70 minutes is a project.
Right.
And now
Right.
we can do whatever we want. You're releasing music on cassette.
Yeah.
How long is the cassette?
I think 50 minutes.
Yeah. And you can get custom-made
Yeah, you can
cassettes
get
that fit
cassettes
the length
cut.
of your, yeah.
That's cool about cassettes too. I mean, you could get Dave Grohlman, the great improviser, percussionist in New York, has his 5-minute tape label, and like it's a tiny amount of tape, and then you can get like 180-minute tape. You know,
Right.
it's pretty cool too.
Huh.
But the more time, the fidelity goes down. You
And
know?
probably there's bleed through, as I remember it from
Yeah, I
cassette
mean,
tapes. and-
I am stretching to remember. I came into this world at the end of the cassette era, so I made mixtapes
right.
for
right.
finals. That was like a big thing. And my brother, like I got tapes from my brothers and my cousin. Cassettes have this like weird nostalgia thing, I think, for a lot of people who are now like making music too, which is part of it.
I've got thousands of them at home if you're ever interested.
No, I'm not. See, I'm on the other side. Like, I don't want anything in my life. But I will, like, if like a cool, like I do buy vinyl. It's like I buy vinyl. But like less in my life is better. So like for me, it was really about putting that music out, and the format didn't matter so much. It was like, if you want to take this home with you, it's a piece of my artwork on the front.
Right, right,
So that's
right.
a cool.
It's a physical
thing.
object.
It's a physical object, but somebody wants to want that.
And download is always there.
And the download, yeah.
and
But you
guys
can
are on Bandcamp,
you can stream it
which
for
is
free.
great.
I mean, like, it's tough in this era to it's like, but yeah, it's also empowering in a way. Like there's so much music now.
And I feel like there's so much freedom for how we can document it and share it and distribute it.
Yeah.
And that's a huge change, and I don't think we've settled into what that is going to mean quite yet.
No, we certainly have not figured it out. Yeah.
But I also think as creative artists, as creative musicians, we have a freedom to make choices that we didn't really used to have. Like there was only one way to make a record, even 10 years ago, I
What
would
is-
say. Well, nobody was making vinyl at all. It hadn't,
Right.
quote unquote, come back yet. And it was just CDs is what you did.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, vinyl is like pretty unfeasible as far as like the amount of money and time it takes to do it. Like CDs.
But also
were,
now
like,
there's online, you could release a single track at a time if you
Right.
want to.
right.
Or
That's-
a 12-hour package of music.
Totally,
It's
yeah.
all available.
That's why I think it's important, if you're gonna have an object, to have it, be really special.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't like to be precious about stuff. I really am not. I like that, but like, it's like you want something nice,
Yeah.
or at least I'm trying to make something, Otherwise, I'll just put it on the internet. It's free,
So you're going to be playing in the Trumpet Festival
Yeah.
a couple of times, right?
Yes.
You're playing that Julius Eastman piece?
Yeah.
That you've played before.
Yes, with Tilt Brass,
Yeah.
Chris McIntyre, like transcribed this whole thing basically from hardly any source material. And we did a concert at the Kitchen
Right.
in Chelsea back a little bit ago. And so this will be the second iteration. It's a beautiful
Looking forward to
piece.
hear it.
I'm like, yeah, I never get a chance to play music like this, so it's
I was going to say, it's like really perfect for a player like yourself, where
Yeah,
you cross
man.
so many different strains, different kinds of playing.
yeah, these like huge chordal long tone things are beautiful with 7 players, you know. And then he also does have the graphic notation in there too for
Yeah.
the improvisers. There's like 2 improvisers basically. It was me and Nate Woolley, and this time it's not Nate Woolley. It's maybe Jonathan Finlayson.
Well, I'll just tell people to go to fontmusic.org to get full information.
There you
it's
go.
September, I want to say
12th?
7th.
7th is
the
right.
Tilt Brass concert. And then
7th
you're
is
also
right.
doing a concert featuring your music and as a guest with Wing Walker Orchestra. I
Yeah.
believe that's on the 12th, September 12th,
Is it the 12th?
at Three's Brewing in,
Okay,
in
cool. That
Gowanus,
would make
Brooklyn.
sense than if I had them flipped. Yeah, I'm really excited for that one too. That one I have to do work for, so I'm
Oh, really?
excited. But I'm gonna
I'm sorry to hear
arrange.
that.
No, that's good. It's good work. It's good work. I just quit my day job, so it's good work. All
Okay,
work
so
is
you'll
good
have
work right now.
time to, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm arranging for Danny and John's group, the Wing Walk.
Wing
Wing
Walker,
Walk
yeah.
Orchestra. A little bit of the Flyer Die stuff. And they're going to do the rest of the arrangements. You know, we're going to play the record down, though.
Great.
Yeah, I'm
Oh, wow.
psyched
Well,
to-
I'll be there.
cool.
I hope that all of the Greenleaf Music, A Noise from the Deep listeners will also show up. But
Yeah,
a lot of them
Three's
are
is a great
scattered around the
spot.
world, so
That's right.
you have to come to New York in September to be a part of that
You
trumpet
got to
festival.
be in New York in September. It's beautiful in September.
It's true. It's true. It always is. So I want to go out with your solo piece, Fly or Die.
Sweet.
Was this also improvised, or was there a preparation that went into this? Or it's so sonically rich, and it
Thanks.
goes by fast.
Goes by fast.
But it also, it's really like you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That was live at LPR, and it was the moment in the set right before the last song. And everything that I had, I've been working up to, we did 2 rehearsals, 2 concerts, 1 rehearsal, 2 concerts, and recorded one day. And so this is the night before we made the record. And it's right, at LPR, it's a cool night.
Mm-hmm.
And the sound was so good. And it's that's what that piece is. It's that solo space where all of that buildup is there, And that's why it's kept on, I don't know if it's good or not, but that's what it is. It's that moment, and that it's woof. That's a heavy moment, right?
I think it's pretty good, Jaimie Branch.
Thank you, Dave Douglas.
Thank you for being here, for doing this. It's
Yeah,
so
man.
great. It was so nice to get to know this music more
Yeah.
and hear about everything you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man.